Delicate subject. Chapter 23. She woke, head aching, but internal workings of her storm having settled down, one of his hands in her hair and one on her stomach. The alarm hadn't woken her. She didn't think that crying herself to sleep to the point of pain was a workable solution for day-to-day. It hadn't been too long, only 3 hours or so, but still, a long bout of uninterrupted sleep for her. He gave her a few moments of drifting, and she came awake with his lips in her hair. I have been thinking of how to navigate, and I find honesty, again, to be ticklish, if not irritating. My mind is geared toward avoidance and manipulation, so forgive me if my manner is unaccustomed. Garrus is concerned that you do not sleep, you do not eat, and also concerned that if he urges you to do either, you will reject his guidance. Perhaps that is a childish impulse. Perhaps it is part of the privilege of being a commander. Perhaps both in turn or combination. We know you are capable of pushing yourself. That is not in question. The question that remains among the three of us is, will you allow us to care for you? Garrus can bring you chocolate, but if he were to bring you a vegetable or ask you to get some rest, would you reject that due to your impression of being treated like a child? You know the answer to that one. He nodded. There is one on board that you permit to heal you, and I would ask that you take our advice as you would Karen's. You need to heal from cumulative traumas and losses. You cannot do that by enacting the same patterns that denied those traumas and losses. This is not something you should barrel through in Shepard style. Well, that's really the only style I have. So, manipulation would not be wise, and honesty will be difficult, but I propose we attempt stability in the storm. Your physical therapy is done, but you must still maintain your physical fitness. You must improve your diet. You must improve your sleep. Meditation would be of value to order your mind. You require intimacy, but not too much. And you require sex, but not too much. You hunger for those things too much already and require boundaries set that you need not keep yourself, that will be kept for you. You have definitely been talking to Garrus. He began intuitively what we can all continue mindfully. Your main issue is not sex, but loss of will. Lend us your will, Siha. Allow us to care for you. Allow that you should permit someone that loves you to care for you. Do not reject that as a childish requirement. Perhaps we learn to trust each other through healing, and you may someday trust us with your mind. He left open whether or not she had actually trusted them with her mind before, because he knew the answer to that one too. That sounds terribly unromantic, hiring 2 babysitters who have their own missions. You should also allow that you have viewed us as children and compensated, manipulated, cared for us that way, insisted upon it. You asked Garrus to resume his family connections for his own sake and for yours. You asked me to confront my health issues for my own sake and for yours. We ask you to begin again. Set limits, set goals, and have faith that the terribly unromantic stage will pass. And you will be back to ordering us about like children soon, with your habit of healing at rapid rates. Allow us this time to care for you. The opportunity will slip beyond our grasp soon, and we want this chance. Well, you seem to be in luck. At Grissom, I will have an hour a day with David, and most of my time will be spent sitting on my ass. Legion knows what I want and what I need, and he's the only one that will be able to communicate. I'm officially window dressing. He kissed along her hair. Then we shall take advantage of that until the situation resolves. Likely, rapidly. I may also be called away and unavailable, and although I regret that being the case, I know your mind, and we shall both do our jobs. And he might die, and she might never see him again. But on each mission, he would fight to save someone's life as hard as he was fighting to save her psyche right now. And she knew time for therapy only applied to any freedom they managed for themselves between the demands of their job. Okay. Whatever you guys think I need. I trust you. She did. It was herself she didn't trust. He drew in a deep breath, let it out, seemingly savoring the moment. I ask that you do not expose yourself to my skin, accidentally or impulsively, or to Garrus's reverie, until you have asked us if we think you are ready. You must gain our consent. And there it was. Why she needed these boundaries. She struggled for a moment at the restriction. A few moments. It was infantile and unnecessary, and she knew her own limits. All right, she was going to be struggling with this for more than a few moments. Face it, Jane, you suck at limits. Limits are not your thing. This is why you need him. Them. Nobody else in the world would get you to accept this level of restriction of freedom. You'd move on in a heartbeat. They're expecting you to move on, freeze them out, or die at some point and stay that way. They're still trying to help. She nodded, and he waited until she said, "Yes, I understand. I agree." His hands shifted on her body from comforting to question. Not restless, but purposeful. Close your eyes. She did. Keep them closed, see her. Focus on my voice. As much as I appreciate the elegant convention of a safety word, between us, perhaps the novelty would be for you to say no at all. Your ability to bear pain is extraordinary, but unnecessary. Tell me no if you are pressed too far. I may stop if I suspect you are being pressed too far and you are unaware. He'd phrased it almost like a mission, a job to do, work to be done, and with that mindset, much of the resistance she faced in a personal sense was replaced by a sense of focus. He'd formulated a plan to bring her back to herself, and better than herself, and she would take those hobbled and blinded steps with him. She gave him attention and focus and tried to drop the rest of the clamor associated with hands on her, the clamor associated with what she wanted to do for him in exchange. Trying to embrace honesty, she said. I feel unbelievably guilty. I want to give back, and I can't. He shifted her head and her hair so his mouth was behind her ear, the sound of his voice close, the vibrations directly into the cords of her neck, filtered through the mass of her hair. You are not taking, Siha. I am giving. I doubt you have experienced a transaction in your life where you have not given more than you received when you felt obliged. For now, my love, focus on sensation. Do your best to receive. For now, suspend your calculation. Sure, people can just do that. We shall see if you can meet the challenge without being near unconscious or compelled. If you must do something, then do something. Use your hands, Sia. How often would you touch yourself on a day when you had no partner? 3 or 4. On a slow day. He nuzzled the back of her head and her hair. So we have a baseline goal. So if I can't manage, you'll pick up the slack? Would you prefer that spread out over an entire day or all together? Twice in the morning and twice at night, please, but... He interrupted her butt by tugging on her hair with his teeth. Baseline performances are not to be judged for impracticality, Jane. We have certainly managed that before. We can do so again. She tilted her head back and sighed, thinking baseline performances as a phrase should not sound so good. Use your hands, Siha. Show me. Promise me you're not going to schedule that every 6 hours. With his leather-clad hand, he guided her hand to the zipper in her jacket, and then pulled it down slowly. I will not dismiss the idea on principle. It has merit. The potential of you always being hungry, voracious, perhaps beyond my skill to satisfy. I would relish trying. You have never once stopped me from touching you when I wished. Would that be a terrible life, Siha? Even if my skin never touches yours? To pull you to me any time I choose? For now, you cannot touch me, and I will not allow it. But perhaps you will have your own pairs of gloves someday. Would it be so terrible to wake every night to my hands and mouth on your body until you are wet heat and moans, until you fall back asleep, panting and sated and in my arms? The pure Terran selfishness of that idea hit her like a newly discovered kink, half shame and half fascination, being given something she would never ask for, even as a fantasy. Even in her fantasies, there had to be implied consent and exchange. That is not fair. His gloved hand slipped under fabric, cupped her breast, thumb on her nipple. She arched into his hand with a hiss, his voice at her ear, his cock hard against her ass. Good. The stage he'd set kept her right with him, his voice in her ear, his hands gliding warm over her body, following her lead as she lifted her hips and scrambled frantically out of pants, kicking them off until he pulled her back against him. Definitely him. Not her, not anything like her. Changing the equation of sex by altering variables. She was with a male, with the prohibition against touching him, with his voice. God almighty, he felt so good. She had memories of him brushing her hair, never pulling, braiding and fussing, taking care of her. Your voice, also not fair. Even better. He guided her hand to touch, and she panicked, thinking frantically, Please don't say anything, she said. I can't bear to hear that I'm beautiful, that I'm strong, that I'm a protector. Please don't fucking say anything, she said. She seized up in that moment at the thought, at all the words that were ruined for her, of all the associations that pulled her down and away. He knew what not to say. See, not Jane. Hard, not soft. Male, not female. Leather, not venom. Stay with it. Not beautiful, not a protector. Selfish. Be selfish. Take what he offers. Swing out wide with him. With him, not with her. She scrabbled hard for mental purchase but failed again, only carried forward by him addressing her body directly and bypassing her mind. When her hands faltered, he slid his hands underneath hers. She arched up as the fingers of one hand trapped her nipple between them, his other hand finding her clit, stroking where her hand had failed. He said, almost taunting, She can't have you. Say it. She couldn't say it. She almost leaped off him for bringing her up, but he knew she was in her head anyway. It added defiance as her fear tripped over to anger, and she followed his voice, followed her hands on her body with desperation and gritted teeth determination. They were not going to let that bitch win anything else off her, and that's what mattered. She collapsed back and counted slow, desperate numbers, until his hands made it impossible for her to think, took the choice away from her, and obliterated dissent. She was starving, selfish, defiant, angry. She did not have to count far with a body accustomed to so much sex, and then none for too long, adrenaline pounding heart, and a desperate, hungry mind to match a desperate, hungry body. She arched her neck back against his unyielding shoulder. Pain swept away in the massive rush and release. Grateful he knew her so well. Gasping for air and managing to say, She can't have me. She was violently shaken. He sat her up, got the rest of her clothing off quickly, took her to the bed, put her down, and got in behind her. Not pressed tight, but close, chest to her back, one hand of his covering hers lightly. Sleep. See her. One battle does not win the war. I will wake you in 6 hours. She couldn't tell if he was joking or not, and she decided that was on purpose. She laughed a lot. It wasn't that funny, but it went with the jangling adrenaline and inability to stay hinged. On the back end of the laughter and the adrenaline and endorphins, the guilt and loss caught up to her. Thank you. I love you. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. His hand raised to smooth over her hair. Jane, I love you. Please do not feel sorry. I am alive. The woman I love is in my arms, with shared hope to be whole. I have a future to fight for, and that is more than I have the right to ask for myself. Please rest. Please heal. We will watch over you. She tried to control her breath and found that she could. Endorphins and defiance had swept away fear. And with a jagged drop-off of adrenaline and the comfort of his presence, her heart rate followed suit. And she fell asleep with gratitude and unexpressed babbling she managed to keep behind her teeth, because he gave her the strength and the example. So she had her second drill therapist. Where Urim had deftly maneuvered her without making her feel maneuvered, Thane knew her so well and was trying so hard to be honest himself that it became a laborious, but charming, definitely charming, set of baby steps that frustrated and annoyed her and comforted and soothed her second by second, not being able to tell which one it was going to be. Urim had likely seen her as damaged, had likely seen so many damaged people, and was so good at smoothing people's rough edges. She was easy for him. Mostly, he had taken her attention off of her troubles. Thane was trying to direct her attention to her troubles, deliberately, slowly, and her impatience and frustration became the key issue, and was revealed to be the reason why she had never truly managed to navigate the areas of kindness, of gentleness. She managed to be kind and gentle toward others, within limits, and usually only associated with otherwise high-functioning people who took care of themselves. But she had never learned how to navigate it in herself. She denied selfish impulses until she found a way to provide an even or an overwhelming trade. This uncovered obsession with always having to give, never believing she took, was an intellectual construct she needed to break down. Providing her body to someone while withholding her mind was not an even trade, though it could certainly qualify as overwhelming. Being unable to be kind to herself, other than superficially, was not an attractive or beneficial personality trait. And that's how blind spots worked. She did have faith in Garrus and in Thane, and that if they both agreed, something should be done. Something should be done. She thought back to several times in her life when others had tried to be gentle or kind to her, or advise her to be kind to herself, and she had either ignored it or frostily ended the conversation. Her equivalent of a tantrum, she now saw, spitting out, "I'm not a child." All evidence to the contrary that she liked to dredge up. Yeah, she was kind of a child in a few aspects of her life. As was Thane. If he could grow up and admit it, so could she. She was competitive. Maybe she could take advantage of that. Ironically, Garrus was the most grown-up among them, at least socially, and his people considered him a child. Did being a grown-up ever get easier? Or was it a long slide through realizing how many mistakes you've made? I mean, I have messed up. I've died. And I'm not even particularly ashamed of that. But this? She had given to Urim. And he had loved her. And she had loved him back. They had celebrated the good things. And avoided the bad. And they hadn't been whole. Yeah, Thane was trying. And succeeding to give one-sided without allowing her to give in return. Slowing her down, making her stand still. Fortunately, the 6-hour battle was a joke, and he didn't enforce a sex schedule. His patience, fully realized, was maddening, and sometimes she did feel like hitting him just for the release of every last bit of corralled and considered tension and coiled energy. It didn't help that she suspected he was enjoying it. Maybe it did help. Once again, it was hard to decide. She made progress of the teeth-gritting, hissing, and spitting sort, while he was calm and controlled, and it pissed her off. Show off. The only consolation was that he sucked at honesty about as much as she sucked at self-care, and she could hear it in his voice. A detached aside, purposely drawn a highlight around something he'd normally used to his advantage and now tried to expose. Her response to self-care was at the base of it, suck it up and play hurt, with elaborate fears she realized were constructions. But what if I get used to taking it easy on myself? What if I just give up because I like it too much? Garrus's response to that one? We're trying to get you to eat a balanced meal on time, Karim, not develop a drug habit and take off to a hedonist colony. Tell me, honestly, what are the odds you're going to give up command? Ever. 0. He had grinned at her. Yeah, 0. The world isn't going to fall to pieces if you experience a little selfish pleasure and take a moment for yourself. She glared at him. The world is falling to pieces. All the worlds are falling to pieces. Yeah, okay. That's your life. I get it. That's been my life, too. All right, then consider it a maintenance schedule. Like for your weapons. You take time. You take care. You don't skimp. I don't want to be someone's maintenance schedule. Stop taking it the wrong way on purpose. It's not that. You know it's not that. You're pouting. She overtly pouted and said, I'm not a child. He tipped her chin up with a fingertip. So, we've all got drill instructors in our heads. Would it help if I yelled at you and demanded that you suck it up and enjoy yourself and not give anything back until you learned your lesson? Her lips twitched. It might. Would you? He tilted his head back. No. Couldn't keep a straight face. We could ask Thane. He'd be happy to have a role to play and not be forced to be honest for a few minutes. How is he? How are you? I mean, when you guys aren't dealing with my bullshit. We're better than we have a right to be. Grateful to have you back. Grateful to have each other back. Grateful for the chance to heal. Taking down the compact is big. He's worried about Kolyat, but so proud. Plus, that man is really good in bed. Or against a wall. I have no complaints. While we're discussing being honest, for the first time in my life, I am so painfully and inappropriately jealous. I have never been jealous before. Or I managed to not feel it. I don't really know. I think I wasn't jealous before because it wasn't you, and it wasn't him. I hate this. It's really, really ugly. I really don't want it to be true. And I hope it's the first thing that fades. She could tell that surprised him. It surprised her that she'd said it. I could get used to Thane being honest. I could get used to you confiding in me. These aren't things I've had before, or not enough to speak about wanting them, or missing them, or demanding them. We are not doing easy things, Karim. The fact that you are alive at all, the fact that you are healing, can heal more, can come out better than you began. Again, I have no complaints. I can tell you that I have also been jealous. I'm jealous now of the two of you, the way your minds work. There's a beauty to you both. The satisfaction of watching perfect clockwork. So efficient they make no sound. No place for me but as an observer. I am beyond certain that Thane is jealous of us. The way we laugh. The way we're known as a team across the galaxy. Associated in every mind. The way we were able to dance before my parents. He will never share that with us. I will never be a cog in a perfectly running, concealed machine of calculation. I can be a member of that team, though, and I have a place there. I know you need me. One day you may have no cause for jealousy, just like you didn't before, when you watched me spend time with Tally. When you watched me spend time with Thane, you always found some way to allow that. Even encouraging that is the best thing for me. Which is partly why it's so hard to believe you don't understand taking time for self. Turns out you know when others need it, but you can't find that in yourself. So we'll find it for you. Maybe we can get back to who we were together. Maybe we can't. I damned well know we'll all try. Maybe we'll be much better than we were. The fact that you can look at me and be jealous in any way, I'll take that as a comfort, as a confidence, and you can know you aren't alone there. You're jealous of what you understand and have lost and can have again. I'm jealous of things I know I do not understand, will not understand, cannot understand. And I still want to be there for more lack of comprehension, Karim. The urge to babble everything and throw herself at him struggled, and she rejected both of those as violating set boundaries, ones she'd set with Thane and herself for good reasons. And those she'd set with them both to not impulsively throw herself at them, to ask for consent. I would really, really like to throw myself at you right now. Can we work out some sort of compromise? His smile was lopsided, and he pulled her into a gentle, slow embrace. Plates remind you of restraint. Yes, but right now they're just you, and you smell good, and you feel good, and I don't want to move. Okay. I miss you, Karim. Never doubt it. We will find a way. Together. She never woke alone. She never went to sleep alone. And it seemed Thane and Garrus had worked out a schedule, daring her to object. They gently nudged her to eat until she took it under her own power to set alarms. She suspected Edie was monitoring her, or her Omnitool was monitored, or both, but benevolently so she didn't do much complaining. No complaining, really. She needed this. She needed them, and to have it essentially given to her without having to ask was therapeutic. Thane began to teach her kata without the influence of venom or exhibitionist display, and began to teach her meditation, which she could only appreciate in a cerebral way, didn't have faith in it, couldn't really settle down from high speed to a slow rate. But the practice of watching her mind dart around like a sparrow on caffeine was educational. Although she was never going to be entirely laid back, she could manage to possibly be just a sparrow. Already magnitudes slower than she had been lately, grinding herself down. She combined his meditation style with her own awareness of the ship, creating a blend of her own spirituality and his focus. Finding the hybrid served her. Coming up on Grissom, she was trying to decide the best use of personnel and time. Jack would not be going to the station because Jane could not imagine her with kids, or could imagine her with kids in a terrifying way. Jack would scare the crap out of them, make it more difficult to overcome already formidable security concerns. Wasn't a Geth enough? Hi, this is Subject Zero. Don't look for her security clearance. Yes, she did just threaten to kill you. Okay, we'll be going now. Jack was busy, having picked up her own sideline with Kasumi. 7 weeks without Shepard and non-stop investigation into who might have taken her did not find Yalis, but did find a lot of people that should be stopped. Kasumi asked Jack to provide her with some profiles of criminal organizations she was tracking, and now they were trying to track down organizations that were not just bad guys, but likely indoctrinated bad guys. Jack was very informative, happy with the collaboration with Kasumi, as well as theft. They could certainly read the bank accounts of those they took down. Some of the credits went to Shepard and then to the Normandy's expenses, but Jane didn't ask for a percentage. Kasumi just deposited funds. Whatever percentage she was getting in either rent or finder's fee was more than enough money to run a ship, and if they kept any appreciable percentage for themselves, they were very rich. Since Jane hadn't taken her up on her offer of pirating, Jack and Kasumi would stay busy and tag team on Kasumi's main line of gathering intel for the Normandy, And then there was that whole criminal enterprise line that they were both interested in. And Jack was a great intimidating front face, and Kasumi never had to expose herself. A match made in Supermax. Jack was off the ship a lot, doing her own thing, coordinated with Kasumi, and available if Jane needed her. But since it had been a few months, and they were headed to an academy of all places, Jack felt free to continue on her own lines of lucrative, rewarding work. Which left Garrus, who was also scary, but not in behavior, and not next to a Geth, who would draw all the attention. Garrus could come with her in a set of C-Sec armor, a comforting and familiar sight on the Citadel. A soft-spoken Taurian who went out of his way to be non-threatening would be nice, and he might have kids hanging off his arm for rides by the end of the day. Garrus could buy her some awe. Okay, these kids were not that young and could probably levitate themselves, but the principle stood. Thane should not be on public cameras, and Grissom was highly supervised. She asked Kasumi to coordinate regarding security on the station, but she didn't need to go over. Just check out the specs sent out by Kaylee, see if there was a discrepancy, holes she could plug up. She had alerted the Alliance to the potential security risk, and pointed out that a bunch of suspected Cerberus operatives had been targeting the station's security. Beefing up Alliance presence and patrols and staying in touch with Kaylee might net them some arrests. Kaylee knew David Anderson, and although that surprised Jane, it was great news. She was happy to have the Earth Councilor's potential for direct intervention on the matter. These kids were not safe sitting out here on this station. Not that anybody was really safe with Reapers coming, but one case at a time. Kaylee had met Jane, Legion, and Garrus at the airlock, and she managed to keep her cool. Mr. Vakarian, it is a pleasure to meet you. Please download the map to the facility on your Omni tool. Security personnel are hoping to speak to you during your visit. Garrus nodded briefly, took off in that direction, leaving Kaylee staring as Legion stood there. You are welcome to Grissom Academy. Thank you, Ms. Kaylee Sanders. I am looking forward to the opportunity to speak to David. It appears he and I have much in common. Kaylee's eyes did not exactly bug out, but she did get that familiar, "Oh, holy shit, it talked to me," look to her. We arrived a little bit early, I know. We can get set up wherever you want us to meet with him. Kaylee nodded, slightly hypnotized by Legion's faceplate movement, and then tore herself away. Yes, please, follow me. She was stunned for only a little bit, then returned to business as usual after a few strides. David remembers you. He is excited about speaking to a Geth. Gushing, for David, that is. It seems that despite his traumas, he genuinely appreciates and misses his interactions with the Geth. He's interested in seeing you as well, Commander Shepard, but his true enthusiasm is for... I'm sorry. What should I call you? My name is Legion. Of course it is. Well, I asked. She escorted them to a room. David will be ready shortly. I'll bring him to you. May I stay, please? It may be a breach of security protocol, but I am fascinated. Jane grinned at her. Please do. I've disrupted your security enough. I assumed we'd be monitored anyway. Please. Since they likely won't be talking to me, maybe I can talk to you. Or we can both just watch. Fascinated. This does not happen every day. All right, I'll be back shortly. When David arrived, he looked briefly at Jane. Commander Shepard, thank you for visiting. I would like to help. I'm sorry I didn't visit earlier. I should have stayed in touch with you. She kept unnecessary social interactions to a minimum. Lucky he was verbal. She didn't want to push it. Legion could explain what they needed, or this was a waste of time and sorrow. She indicated Legion. His name is Legion. It would help if you could speak to him. David turned to Legion to face him, and he started the static clicking of Geth's speech. Rapid, incomprehensible, alien from a human mouth, sounding, if anything, from David's mouth, excited and tonal, not the flat delivery of his human speech. And that's what they listened to for about half an hour, with Kaylee and Shepard doing the equivalent of a useless shrug. They were fascinated, though, the sounds of Geth's speech filling the room from two otherwise immobile platforms. Legion made no attempt to look human, stood entirely still. David's face was also impassive. After about 45 minutes of this, Legion turned to her and said, Shepard, Commander, David Archer wishes to help. He knows exactly what you need and would be able to communicate it, but is frustrated by the limitations of speech, English and Geth. He recommended the use of a direct upload conduit. He would be able in that form to provide the necessary structure and nuance of the information needed in the language and programming capacity of the Geth. And it could be translated to Edie. Kaylee said, Oh, come on. You've got to be kidding me. Welcome to my job. Legion, what is a direct upload conduit? The Geth use them to directly uplink into the collective. David is aware I would know the location of such conduits. I would be able to guide him through the collective, and he could use that medium to upload the information directly to me and to Edie, with me translating for him. He is excited. He has been deeply frustrated, though grateful, in the company of humans, and wants to go with me. He wants to be on the Normandy, to be able to talk to me, to talk to Edie, to be able to help. He wishes to give back. Kaylee turned to David and said, Oh, David. David, it's your choice. It would be dangerous, and you've been through so much, more than I have. You're old enough now to legally make that choice. It will be dangerous on the Normandy, dangerous to your platform, dangerous to Legion's platform, dangerous to me. David said, It is dangerous to everyone, everywhere. I want to go. For everyone that has been hurt by Cerberus. I can make it stop. Legion told them, If there is any requirement for care of David Archer, I wish to know what is required. I am far from my people, and he is far from his. And we can meet, no longer alone. He is the most intelligent human I have encountered. Shepard imagined Legion swapping out her bit of N7 armor for a piece of Grissom Academy shirt. She was all for it. Okay, let me talk to Miss Sanders, work out what needs to be worked out. David, I agree with Legion on the intelligence part, and I'm gonna tack on brave. You are welcome on the Normandy. David turned back to Legion, and they began to speak again, ordered, concentric, no tonality. Maybe discussing prime numbers or solving mathematical proofs. Definitely the most intelligent human. Kaylee said, Oh, give me A minute here. Let me think. Take your time. I promise that what they're talking about, what they say he can do, will save... I can't even count the lives. David probably can. I'm gonna go with his judgment on this. If Legion knows what to do, we can do it. And only involve David when we've made it safe for him. Yeah, maybe that means killing a few thousand Geth, but maybe Legion can do something about that, too. Some of the Geth are now on our side. Being on the Normandy may be a dangerous place, but David's right. Everywhere is dangerous now. He's been trapped inside his own head. And now, he has someone to talk to. Okay. Now I need a few more minutes.